It is Wednesday. It's BRAP time. It's for the love of video games. And my goodness, we have explosive breaking news regarding. Oh my God, this shit is just crazy. Activision-Blizzard. And I'm reading this lawsuit. We'll talk about that later on. Hey, Ice Cream Gaming. What's up, everyone in the live chat, first and foremost? Please hit that like button. And if you're new to the show, subscribe as well. But we have a lot to talk about. We have, like I said, late-breaking, explosive news regarding Activision-Blizzard that we're going to get into. We're also going to talk about Death's Door, give our thoughts about that, and Sony skipping another big game event. But before we get to those topics, I do want to introduce our guest this evening. This gentleman is no stranger to BRAP. We actually had him on a couple weeks ago. We have, I don't think he's no longer known as Undead 3XVI on Twitter. We have Nick Downey in the house. Nick is the Gaming Perspective founder and lordsofgaming.net assistant editor-in-chief. Nick, welcome back to BRAP, sir.
Thank you for having me on. Always a blast to talk video games and all the other stuff with you guys.
Absolutely. You know, Nick, I thought that this was going to be a kind of a slow news week, I guess. And then minutes before we go live, we get this like bomb regarding Activision Blizzard that we're going to talk about. And I got to be honest with you, I can't wait to get your perspective on this, because you do a lot of writing regarding the game industry, video games, and you really put out some great content. So really looking forward to getting your thoughts on that particular topic and the rest of the topics this evening as well. But we also have somebody else who's also not a stranger to BRAP. We have a gentleman I've known for about 20 years, met on Xbox Live after my days as an OG Xbox Live beta tester. We have OBM, One Bad Mother. What's up, OBM?
Hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me once again, Enrique. I swear, I think you just invite me so you can get that line out right off the bat. But as always, appreciate you allowing me to join you today. I thought today was going to be one of those like low drama days. Like, this would be nice. We'll get to talk about some indie games, and yeah, I feel like you tricked me. But here we go. I'm here.
I tricked you. Yes, I did trick you. Yeah, and I should have mentioned too, you're also a contributor to the folks over at Xbox Era, so I forgot to mention that as well. But you guys do great work over there. So we also have my man who seems like he just can't get out of the COVID hotspot of the United States, Mr. Eric Jackson. What is going on, sir?
Oh, what is going on? Yeah, definitely always the COVID hotspot. DeFantis, shout out to him.
Yeah, big shout out to Rick DeSantis.
I don't know how many like Harry Potter fans we have here, but do you remember like when Voldemort returned and like the Ministry wouldn't like admit that there was it's not true, he's not back.
That's Florida.
That's sort of like how how DeSantis kind of rolls. Funny enough too, I don't want to turn it into a political thing, but it's just for perspective. Just think about the fact that he has gone into content creator and monetized COVID in a way, by selling merchandise.
Merchandise? What is he selling? Like,
he sells beer koozies and T-shirts that say "Don't Fauci my Florida."
Oh my God! He
not even bullshitting you.
He's the governor of a state, and I'm again. I don't want to get political, but I got to be honest with you. Like, I'm at a point now. I'm at my tipping point now with this pandemic where it's like the reality of the matter is we could end this pandemic today if everyone just went out and got vaccinated, and we're not doing that. And then you have a guy like DeSantis basically making money off this idea of, don't get vaccinated. Forget about saving lives. Who cares about that?
Well, look, I'll say this before, and I know we'll move on. Like I said, we don't want to make it political. Like, if you don't want to get vaccinated, that's your right to definitely do that.
Absolutely.
I'm not a person that's like, yo, you got to do it, and just like, I don't expect people to come at anybody who does get vaccinated. You have free will to do what you want to do. I would just say educate yourself about it. If you have your reasons, that's fine, but don't listen to like a lot of these GOP members or these Fox News people, because all of them are vaccinated.
Yeah, and you know what? I actually think I gotta be honest.
So don't listen to people who are like, it's like do as I say, not as I do type of thing. Find out, get your information for yourself.
Yeah, and I gotta be honest with you. Yeah, I'm starting to think that this is natural selection, where natural selection isn't necessarily about like who is
Well,
physically.
I don't want to get selected because people are dumb.
Yeah, well, who's more
Because of our
physically?
dumb leadership.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I think it's not about like who's physically fit anymore per se. Like maybe hundreds and hundreds of years ago, when dinosaurs were roaming and shit. But I mean, this is I think this is natural selection. The case of, are you empathetic and do you have common sense? It's just. Yes, go ahead.
Enrique, remember we were talking about? It's funny he mentioned the Voldemort thing. I remember I said this a few weeks ago. I beat Mass Effect 2 and 3 for the first time ever when the collection came out, and I'm like, the first time I was playing through 2, I'm like, could that really happen? Could they just pretend like Sovereign just freaking wrecked just wrecked everything, right? And then pretend nothing happened. Oh, those guys didn't exist.
Don't believe.
And then I was like, you know what? Then I turned on the news and I'm like, yeah, I think at least half of us would probably, play that off depending on if it was, if it was going to be politically beneficial for them. So it's like, yeah, now I get it. I get how that, I get how that could happen. That it totally was a realistic plot foreshadowing, our own microcosm of that. So, but sorry. Anyways, I went off tangent there.
Yeah, it just it's fascinating to me that we are at a point now where people either didn't pay attention in science class and have completely forgotten the scientific method, and have thrown science to the fire for conspiracy theorists, and that's mind-boggling to me.
We seem to be annoying Biggie Butters who can pretty much go fuck himself. I really don't care.
Oh, I did see that. Well, Biggie Butters, again, I think, Biggie, this is part of the mindset that I'm talking about. Under house arrest, we're talking about
nobody's under house arrest.
Nobody's under house arrest. Wow. Let me call the Wobulance here for you. This crying about and this conjecture and everything about this stuff. It just look. We're in the middle of a public health crisis where 600,000 people have died, more than that actually, where the life expectancy of the United States per the CDC, per data, has decreased by a year. Life expectancy in this country.
Ricky, I don't want to cut you off. I don't want to cut you off. We don't even need to get into all that. I just literally just said, you have free will. Do what you want to do. Educate yourself. And this type of person still has a problem with it. So let's just move on. Let's get to the gaming topics because, people get in their feelings.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and on that note, we got my man B Money 101, who is the Nostradamus of gaming. B, you called it, man. These what did you say about developers again? What's going on with these big AAA developers, B? B, are you there? I don't think B Money's there. All right, B, can you hear it? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. All right, B. What's going on,
What's going
B?
on, fellas?
Yeah, I referred to you as the Nostradamus of video gaming, and I brought up what you were talking about before we went live about the third-party developers, what you talked about a couple months ago. Maybe it was longer than that, I think. But what was it that you said again? Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I said prior to the generation starting that I felt like all the big AAA developers were going to self-destruct, and right before our eyes, we are seeing it happen. So. Salute to Activision for being jackasses and letting some of these shenanigans go on that have been reported today by Jason Schreier.
It's wild too, man. Like reading that, you're like, who? In today's world, it's like, why would you even go down that path? Like,
right?
Like you shouldn't even be staring at a coworker too long now these days.
I know. Man. After everything we've been through. Whole Me Too movement, everything. Like, why would you even put yourself in that position where anything could even be questioned? You know what I mean?
That's wild.
It's some scary stuff, man.
I was reading it. I'm just like, this can't be real. I'm like, what?
$1 billion company, and this is still going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild, man. I'm just and we'll get to that here in a little bit, B. But it's wild. These guys. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's nuts. But I do want to talk about Death's Door, which just released. I think was it yesterday? It was yesterday. Seems to be reviewing very well. It's right now it's console exclusive on the Xbox platforms right now. It's on PC as well. And I did buy the game. Actually, I was intrigued by the trailer when I first saw the trailer of this game, but definitely picked it up. And I've probably put about an hour of the game so far. I'm enjoying it. I think it's a pretty good game. Gives me a lot of those, old school Zelda vibes with that, top down view and dungeon exploration. Even the protagonist, the way the combat reminds me of, Link using his sword and shield from that top down perspective in the OG or the first Legend of Zelda on the NES. But I want to go to you, Nick. Nick, have you been able to play this game yet?
Nah, man, I don't play video games. I bought it for what it's worth. I only get to game pretty much on the weekend. So
Gotcha.
So that's more of what I've been stuck with. It's why I'm waiting to play on Friday night, basically. Gotcha.
But it's but I'm assuming it's a game that you probably have definitely looking forward to then. Stick your teeth in.
Anything Devolver Digital puts out is phenomenal, and I'll buy day one, no matter what. Period. Yeah. End of story.
Yeah, no, Devolver Digital definitely puts out some pretty great content.
They know how to pick them, man.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. I think you've played this game already, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I've been on it. I should say.
Yeah. What are your impressions so far?
So far, so good, man. It's from the moment that the game was revealed, I think it was at the Xbox showcase, right, Nick?
Yep.
Yeah. From the moment it was revealed, I was like, yo, that looks right up my alley. That game looks, just from the premise of it, I'm like, wow, that just looks really cool. So it was really cool just seeing like the reviews on it. And again, I don't like lean too much into reviews. If there's a game I'm interested in, I'm gonna play it regardless of what it is. It's just kind of adds to that when you can kind of see it like across the board, people are having pretty good feelings about it, and yeah, so the impressions and some of the things I've seen have been pretty much spot on, and it's just great. It's got like really, really good combat. It's fluid. The controls are really good. I know some people, have kind of mentioned Dark Souls, which is always hilarious when that kind of gets mentioned. I don't find it to be as difficult as a Dark Souls, but it's definitely got some of the tones. Which again, let's be honest, OVM, I hear you laughing because it always goes back to the Dark Souls thing. I'm like, Dark Souls didn't create a lot of the things that it does. It just kind of implemented a lot of gameplay mechanics that have happened over the years, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, unlocking shortcuts, kind of, you kind of start back at the beginning when you die, but you kind of, you don't feel like you're completely put out. It's fair. It can be tough, but fair at the same time.
Yeah, go ahead, OBM. You were to say something, man?
Oh, was I? Okay.
I thought you were. No, I thought you. I'm sorry. I thought you were chiming in. I thought you were chiming in. But...
I wanted to wait for Eric to finish, but I think he was bringing up some good points. Actually, it's actually interesting because one of the reasons I've always loved the Soulsborne franchise is because I think what that franchise did extremely well is it brought a lot of those old school gameplay loops into the 3D high production value, era, made it more mainstream, like figure out a way to make it work in there. And I don't think a lot of games in the 3D era really figured out how to kind of capture that Metroidvania feel, that difficult but fair feel, like those really good, intense boss battles that really challenge you to apply all those things that you learn along the way. And so like this is just actually stepping back. I think the reason why it feels like a Soulsborne game in some regards is because it's a classic it's a classic 2D style of game, like a good one, a good classic game where it really does have really thoughtful game design in terms of the level layouts. It encourages you to explore, look for things, to upgrade. It has that element of it. It has, your boss battles where they have different patterns that you learn, and you kind of learn through dying. And then it has that rhythm too. I think like a lot of the classic games in Soulsborne has that kind of that rhythm fighting where you kind of learn to count your strikes and then dodge. You get ready to dodge and that kind of stuff. And so it really does capture a lot of that. It's definitely not as punishing. So for those people that are really turned off by that aspect, I think it is a lot more accessible. They add a lot more shortcuts and a much less a lot less punishing in terms of like the penalty for dying and things like that. So I would definitely, if somebody's maybe turned off by that comparison, I would still encourage them to give it a shot. It does have a lot of Zelda-ish to it too, so it's kind of like Zelda and like Souls kind of had a baby a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But yeah, I've been looking. I've been like you. I've been since they showed this at the Idea at Xbox show some months back. I think like even for Xbox era when we voted on the top games of that show, this was in their top 5, along with like The Ascent and 12 Minutes and those types of games. So this one really jumped out as like right from its first reveal because of the art style, and I've put in about hour and a half. Not a ton of time yet, but initially what I do like is you can already kind of see how the game is meant to be designed, and it does have tight controls, like it has those rhythmic controls and things like that. So I'm excited to really delve into this more this weekend.
Yeah, no, me too, and I think it was both you and Eric that brought up the kind of Souls like level design, like with opening up different paths or shortcuts. It's very much like that, but I think to your point, OBM, it's not Souls or like Bloodborne difficult per se. Like it's just not, But I'm really, and the puzzles that I've encountered so far don't seem too bad. Like they don't seem to kind of. And I've only encountered a couple of puzzles, but so far it doesn't seem like anything that's too tedious per se.
Right.
And even some of the boss battles, like the one that I think of, the one with the house or castle or whatever. Actually, I thought that was designed pretty well. I really enjoyed that. Like the different phases that he went through kind of reminded me again, kind of that Souls type, boss battles sometimes with the Souls bosses, they go through different phases.
Yeah.
But
it does.
Go ahead, man.
It does something really good too, which I really applaud. Is like it onboards you fairly quickly, but it doesn't like patronize you.
Yeah.
Like
that's a great point.
You learn the mechanics like very very quickly, very fluidly, or naturally, I should say, and then you're kind of off to the races. But it definitely promotes like exploration. Like it doesn't. There's, as far as I know, there's no map that shows up or anything like that. But it's very much about memorization, kind of like. And the thing is, the way the levels flow, it is kind of easy to memorize and figure out what your placement is and where you are, and especially when you start unlocking the shortcuts to kind of get back to that area where you kind of goofed. And like I said, it's not that thing where you get punished or you die and you're like, what the hell with this, man, because it's frustrating. You're like, yeah, I zigged when I should have zagged. I'm coming back to get that bastard. Right? You kind of
exactly.
You find your way back to your shortcut, and you're like, hey, I'm back, dude. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
So yeah. And it's one of those things too. Like it definitely it's a dance of combat. Like don't be too aggressive with this one particular boss because they'll punish you for it. It's like you kind of have to figure that dance, which is really cool. So far so good. That's just my early review. Like OBM, I'm about the same, about 2 hours in, kind of in that first boss level area. But it's pretty varied, like the environments, which is pretty cool. And so far I'm liking the bosses. Not the boss, I should say, but the enemy types and things like that. So it doesn't let you really like rest on your laurels as far as what it throws at you.
Yeah, it does it. And the one thing that's really, I think the thing that's really amazing is that this game was developed by, if I'm not mistaken, two people, right?
Yep.
Wow.
That's another. I mean, it's almost like another topic, but I always feel like I find a way to say this every time I come on your show. Don't sleep on the indie developers this generation. Their tools are better. I don't know if you guys saw the other news thing, not the Activision-Blizzard thing, but like Microsoft's now making their GDK available, their Series X GDK available through GitHub, and so basically any hobbyist, anybody, you can basically you can now be a developer anywhere in the world, and you have access to super powerful tools like game engines that you can use for free. You can learn them for free. There's a lot of support, and so I think what you're going to start seeing is like just really creative people worldwide, not just like here, but like all around the world are going to have access. Like the barriers are coming down for them, and because of the digital distribution, like there's just a lot of opportunity for really creative people to get discovered. And yeah, this is it's pretty amazing when you consider it is a 2-person team. We've seen some other things too, like Song of Iron's a 1-person team.
Oh, that looks great.
Yeah, that looks really cool. The Ascent's a 12-person team. I mean, these are not mega teams, and what's really cool, like I was hearing the developers from the Ascent talk about it. Some of those guys used to work at AAA developers, and they said, when we were working there, it's like, yeah, we did really, really amazing things, but it was like you're steering a ship, and so you wanted to make a change, or you discovered something halfway through the process. You really can't turn that ship around. Whereas like what they're doing now with their 12-person team. If they kind of have an aha moment or want to kind of change direction, they can swerve really quick because they're so because they're just a tight knit group like that. And I think it's going to allow as those tools get better and they can start creating better games that look better aesthetically, and I think would have more visual appeal to like mainstream who maybe wouldn't have given those games a chance when they were pixel art games. You're now, I think you're going to start bridging. You're going to maybe bring back some of the middle class of gaming again, and a lot more of that. It's going to push these It's going to be interesting because we're going to get into this AAA soon today. So I think it's almost a good segue, but or just a kind of a good table setting for that. But it's going to start pushing these AAAs to maybe start to be more innovative, because I think there is going to be fatigue on that end. A lot of them, they're all making now, they're chasing the same thing, and I think a lot of people are going to turn, especially like us who've been gaming for 40 years. I've been 40 years gaming. Enrique, I think you're about the same, and I think you're the same too. Yeah, it's like we've been doing this for a while, and it's like if they're starting to make the same stuff on that AAA level, year after year, I think you turn back. It's like you just want some variety. It's like I joke with Enrique, I eat Chipotle a lot, but I need to kind of diversify it once in a while, right? Otherwise, that will lose its taste over time.
That's why you got to hit up Qdoba.
Like this doesn't hit the same anymore.
Yeah, the 7th day in a row, it started to taste a little different. I don't know, I could. So, right. So you need that. And I still enjoy a lot of AAA stuff. I'm not like putting it down, but they are all kind of copying each other and being samey. It's like the same 4 to 5 games generally. I'm being very general. Like obviously there's some.
I think you're probably referring to are you referring to like the first person shooters, the Call of Duties, or like the Assassin's Creeds.
Yeah, across
service and type of they have to figure out how to monetize constantly.
Yeah.
Well, and even the really good ones. I don't like. This is why I'm trying to be careful here, because I'm not saying they're bad games. I'm saying that there's just not a lot of variety up there. There is some really good games in that space. Like Sony makes some really good games, but they have a type of game they make, right? Like Ubisoft, for a while, people really like those games, but they're starting to kind of they've been formulaic now. And then everything's like a military shooter, or like a. There's just like what do you call it? Battle Royale mode, or there's just like a handful of things that seem to be making all the money at the top of the industry. So I personally am really excited, and that's why I keep, every time I get this something kind of sparks that conversation, I get excited about that, because I think we're just seeing the very beginning of what the indie developer is going to be capable of. You're going to see the quality of like their kind of mid-levels. I think you're going to see that increase every year as they're getting more and more time with these tools that have just been made been upgraded the last few years.
Yeah, that's I think it's a great point, Obi. I'm gonna grab this super chat from our good friend here, T-Rock40 with the $2 super chat says it's been 84 years since BRAP played Dark Souls 3. This is true, and I know T-Rock. I need to get back to Dark Souls. I get that, but no, that's a great point, Obi. I think for me, I also think that indies are kind of where you're getting that at least for me, it's scratching that creativity itch that I want to see in games that you don't necessarily see at the AAA level, because they're probably a little more risk adverse because they want to, they want to make money, things like that, etc. But I think that the indie space is really feeling, at least for me, kind of scratching that itch again of creativity and maybe trying different things that we probably won't see AAA games do. Nick, would you agree with that statement that that the indies are kind of where it's at in terms of maybe pushing the creative boundaries, if you will, in gaming?
Well, here's the thing. There is a lot of variety that people aren't paying attention to. Like, it's always amazing to me. Like, I remember like when people were talking about The Ascent, it's been mentioned. It looks like a phenomenal game. It's 12 people. You look at, there's indie publishers that constantly work on games. You take someone like New Blood Interactive. I know they primarily operate in the PC space, but almost every game they publish is made by 1-2 people, maybe. And it's always incredible games. You look at games like My Friend Pedro from Devolver Digital. That was one guy who did it part-time. And Devolver went, hey, we really like what you have. This is really unique. Let's do this as a full-time thing. And I think the thing is what you're seeing is a lot of AAA developers, because back 10, 15 years ago, AAA was the space to be creative because it was being creative on a big budget. But now it's how can we monetize our games? That's the big question mark now with a lot of games. And in the indie space, it's still more about, how do I put this? I want to put this in a good way. But in the indie space, it's more about the developer wants you to play their game. They're not trying to sell you skins. They're not trying to sell you cosmetics. They're not trying to sell you on the idea of that this is a really great this. They're just like, hey, this is our game idea. If you like it, buy it. And that would be pretty cool. Like, I have several friends that are in indie development, and I have friends that are in AAA. There's no difference in the passion from the people that work in either AAA or indie. But what the difference is the business model that's adopted by upper and higher management. And I think in the indie space, people are being a lot more varied in their tastes now. And in the era of social media, it is a lot easier to do marketing campaigns without having to spend $1. If anyone follows like FPS PC games, Dave Oshry's a meme machine and can market any game at $0. And that's it's the marketability of it all. You can market anything on social media with a stupid meme. And that's kind of the brilliance of it all. So when you sit down with these passionate developers who are, 4 guys working on an RPG that is inspired by, Zelda or something, you're going to get positive feedback from people who are sick of seeing, copy and paste, your XDefiants or Uwus or wherever the fuck Ubisoft's doing right now. And,
right.
and that's just where it's at. Like, I've been focusing primarily on the indie scene since 2015. Because it's where you will find the games that make you go, whoa, and make you take a sit down more than, the AAA games these days.
Well, if you think about it, it's like some of the innovation that we had this generation. Like, remember the whole battle royale actually came from an indie developer at that time. I mean, now it's become sort of formulaic, but I think a lot of your innovation is going to come from there. And it just keeps going back to you're giving them tools where they can start to do things with AI and physics. And it's just going to be super exciting to see. There's thousands of indie developers out there. There's thousands of people that are creative, that are not going to be restrained by, by the big machine, I guess. And you're right, Nick, that developers are passionate no matter where they're at. I know somebody who's at EA, they're passionate about their job. I know somebody's a contractor. They're all very passionate about.
Apparently they're really passionate at Activision-Blizzard.
Yeah, that's the wrong kind of passion, though. Okay, that's not the passion I'm talking about. But they're really, really passionate about it. But the indie developer, you're right. Like when you talk to them, they just want people to play their games. They want people. They want it. Like it's kind of like your experience as a content creator, right? Like you a lot of times when you're like at these stages, you just want people to hear your stuff and appreciate it more than, like, hey, I'm looking to get paid off this, video. And so like, I feel like there's a lot of that same sort of passion from them. It's just like, I created this cool thing. I hope people get to try it. And it's just a lot of fun to support them as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, OBM. And there's certainly, I'm trying to think of all the great indie games I've played. There's one that really stands out to me. You guys remember Inside?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I mean, that game, literally the ending of that game had me put my controller down, and I was like, wow, what an experience. And I forget, I don't know how big that team is that did Inside. I know that's, is it Playdead that made the game? I don't remember.
Yep.
But that game, that ending, I mean, just like, wow. And I was just so blown away. And it was like, and that game was probably one of my favorite games. And I forget when that game came out, but whatever year that game came out, that game was one of my favorite games of the year. It was just so good. I might go back and play it now that I'm talking about it, because it was that good. That ending is just amazing. But to your point, Nick, like about, Ubisoft, and we'll talk about that here in a sec. I mean, I think for me personally as a gamer, I appreciate the big AAA games, and I appreciate the passion that these individuals have, but that machine just isn't always attracted to me as a gamer, because because of the way I grew up playing video games, where there was just so much variety and different types of content, risks that were being taken. I think more of those risks are being taken now with some of these smaller studios in the indie scene. But B, any thoughts on this, B Money?
I mean, I've been kind of dreaming about indies before it was cool. I mean, back in the early tick days, 2014, 2015.
This is true. I remember that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of people were trying to, push them off to the side and try to say that they couldn't be, the main dish of the course. But it's
they were dismissed as pixel trash back then. B, remember that? Oh, pixel trash is garbage.
Nobody wanted to play the $20 game. Nobody wanted to play the $15 game. Because everybody wanted to play the latest big AAA game. And like I said, I've been saying it for a while. These indie developers have been bringing us crazy innovation in that space, and it's only going to continue. Like OBM said, with the tools that they have now. I mean, the updates to Unreal Engine 5 and Unity and things like that. They have, Pandora's box is wide open to them now. As long as they have a passion and can see that through, I think that's where we're going to get some of the best games. Like you guys said, all these AAA games have become cookie cutter games. I mean, they're all one and the same, just a different skin slapped on top. And I think that's why there's only a few at the top. And like I said, a lot of these big AAA companies are about to self-destruct. So we're going to need some of the miniature devs and a lot of these indie devs to kind of support it, because for a while, these big AAAs, man, they're only feeding us the same thing over and over. After a while, we're going to get tired of that. So we'll be looking for other stuff to play.
Well, yeah, let me second that too. I'm seeing like some pretty passionate debates going on in the chat. The AAA gang is in the house, and they're pushing back against the indie discussion here. And that's fair. That's fine. Everybody has their thing. That's the beautiful part about gaming. Everybody has a flavor and a taste, but you definitely need to definitely show the respect to where the indie development scene has. It's always been there. It's always been, like B said, it didn't always get the credit, but you're seeing now with better tools, like you said, OBM. You're seeing teams push some really cool things out. And true, it's just like film, it's just like anything else. It's something that you may have seen before, but it's somebody's take on it. It's just like art. Artists are inspired by other artists, whether you paint, whatever you want to do. You may see something from another artist and it inspires you to do something else. It doesn't mean that, you reinvented the wheel. You just put your interpretation out there and then that spoke to somebody else. But I'll say this, don't dismiss what the indie scene is doing because it's filling an area where the AA scene it's slow. The AA scene is slowly coming back, but it's definitely filling that void that it was left with that because the industry did sell out in a lot of ways for all the AAA stuff. But AAA is so expensive and takes so long to develop. If you want to downplay the indie part and cut that out, you're not gonna have much to play in between AAAs, unless you're gonna play that same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And that's some people. That's fine for some people. But if you're talking about, especially in the vein of the big AAA single player game, you're gonna be waiting a while in between games to play, something. So that's where your indie can fill that in. And don't downplay the indie as just being a side scroller, because that's what people made the mistake in 2013 is, it's just a side scroller and this and that. There's a lot of different levels of what indie development is doing.
Yep.
I mean, you look at, look at A Plague's Tale.
Yep. Yeah. That's a really good example.
Yeah, Plague's Tale is a really good game too. At least I thought it was a really good game.
Well, and actually, you brought up a really good point there too, because the AA is coming back because of the indie. Because these smaller studios, they grow into those middle-sized studios, and then you see with this investment now is actually because the expectation that this industry is going to grow so much, and that the walls are kind of coming down between the barriers between these consumers and the games. There's so much investment going. It's now kind of hitting that independent scene. You see like a lot more, some of them are getting bought up, but you see, more publishing that's coming back in that area, which, that AA/indie publishing was not really, that wasn't happening a whole lot a few years back, but now you're starting to see a lot more of that. And this is where you're going to start to see these kinds of games, the next projects, if they hit this one, they make enough money on it, they can invest in and bring in more people for their next project. And you're going to start to see that, like anybody who kind of grew up a long time in gaming is seen, I've seen some of I saw Bethesda when they were still an independent developer, and now you kind of look at where they're at today. But you saw that kind of growth and that maturation of these studios like over time. I remember when Bungie was, and like these studios, like over time they did something, it hit well enough, and they were able to reinvest it, hit a little bit bigger, and then you just see them keep growing. And so you're going to see some of them probably turn into they might shoot a little bit higher the next time. I know Moon Studio, which made Ori a few years back, and that wasn't. Oh my God,
Ori's a fantastic game.
Yeah, and I know that wasn't your traditional like tiny indie team, but it wasn't a giant studio either, and they grew a lot for Ori too. And now they're listening to Thomas Mahler, they're shooting to make a AAA budget 3D game next, and he's like determined that he's going to make the like an RPG that's going to compete. He wants to make something that's going to compete with best of all time, which we'll wait and see. But it's interesting to kind of see how their goals have kind of evolved, and I think you're going to see a lot of that. So that's I think the thing, and I think to E's point, it's not necessarily, this isn't putting down necessarily like other options. Like if you like to just play Call of Duty or PUBG or Fortnite or whatever, whatever games you like to play, that's the beauty of gaming. Nobody needs to like to give you crap about what you like. This is something we do to get away and enjoy it. But the more variety they have, the more they're going to bring in, the healthier the industry will be, worldwide. So it's still something to be excited about, even if you're not into these games yourself.
Yeah, that's a great point, OBM. Our good buddy here, Slummo Backslap, who's actually on vacation today or this week, I should say, couldn't join us. But big shout out to Slummo with the $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Slummo. Says indie devs push innovation that publishers are too afraid to risk in a AAA project. The majority of the features you enjoy begin with an indie dev. Thank you for that super chat, Slummo. Appreciate it, man. We miss you as well. Hope you're enjoying your downtime. And, that leads me to kind of segue to, I think it was Nick that brought up Ubisoft. and Ubisoft announced a new game. And yeah, I gotta say, it's, I don't want to say another or kind of downplay the game, but it's another free to play, shooter. And it's Tom Clancy's XDefiant, and for me, it's not something that I'm personally interested in. I think it has a little bit of an uphill battle because I think that's a crowded, I think, scene with these free to play first person shooters. We know the War Zones, the Fortnites, and I'm probably missing some other ones. Apex Legends. It's potentially an uphill battle for Ubisoft. Maybe we'll see if they. And I don't think this is their first free to play shooter. Did they do something else that didn't really do well? I forget the name of the game. Hyperscape. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, it came out one day and it was gone the next day. So that's how
exactly. Beat money. But we kind of figured, that they. Yeah, I could understand why they would do this. I mean, the Hyperscape failed, but I think in terms of they already have these assets already. They could probably just create a new game, put it out there free to play, and it's probably, I guess, maybe financially speaking, maybe easier for them to do that, not as much money as opposed to maybe developing a big AAA game. But Nick, any interest in this game, man? When you or thoughts on the reveal?
Look, if you're gonna keep using Splinter Cell,
I know,
as an adjacent franchise, fucking make a game so people remember what the franchise is.
I agree, man.
Because I actually had someone message me and go, "Oh, it's so cool to see a Ghost Recon crossover." I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're like, with like the goggles and stuff. I'm like, "Oh my god, it's been so long since the proper Splinter Cell title. People think this is a Ghost Recon thing now." Like, here's the thing. Is Ubisoft is constantly leaning on the fact that they have some incredibly beloved IP. You have Ghost Recon, you have Splinter Cell, Assassin's Creed, and everything else. But when you take those games and you gut out everything that people enjoyed about them, and you constantly are chasing a wave that doesn't necessarily exist, it doesn't necessarily work out well. Like we saw Hyperscape, they're like, "Hey, look, it's 2020. Here's a battle royale game." It's like, yeah, bro, you're 3 years late with this. Like the ones that are out. And if you want to make waves in the battle royale genre, you gotta do something that Apex, Fortnite, PUBG, and all the other, and Warzone aren't doing. So good luck with that. And this kind of falls into the same category. It's like, it looks generic. It, like, you could put this beside Call of Duty and I probably couldn't tell you the difference. Besides, it's a slightly more edgy, which just, it hurts my soul. This is the most soulless AAA reveal I've seen in such a long time. And the fact that they had to drag up like old like Call of Duty influencers like T Martin to like be like, "Hey, look guys, this is really cool." It's like, what happened to Ubisoft? What's happening to Ubisoft? Like damn, like I'm so incredibly disappointed that the company that brought me Prince of Persia, the Splinter Cell games and everything else is just recycling the same ideas or borrowing from already done experiences. Like who asked for Ghost Recon Breakpoint? Who asked for The Division to be put into Ghost Recon? Fucking nobody. You guys just woke up one day and went, "You know what? We just released The Division 2. So 3 months later, we're going to release The Division 2 and Ghost Recon. And people are going to love it." They had backtracked so hard in that game, they had to patch in ghost mode so people could play it like a goddamn Ghost Recon game. Like, they don't listen. They don't care. They had management changes and they're like, "Look, we're listening. But we're really not. We're still
you though."
And the thing is like, I just don't understand their business direction right now. And that's my frustration with them. You look at Assassin's Creed Valhalla, it was their most successful Assassin's Creed game. Do I like the fact Assassin's Creed is a 100-hour RPG now? No, I don't. But I respect the fact that it's incredibly successful for them the way they were doing it. So what do? They're like, "Oh no, next game's going to be a platform." And it's like, what are you guys doing? Like, I want whatever they're smoking at Ubisoft right now because that's that good stuff.
Right.
That's it.
You know
Ran
what,
over.
Nick?
I'm done.
You know what, Nick? They know that Sam Fisher is popular. They know that people love Sam Fisher, which is exactly why Sam Fisher shows up everywhere that they can cram him in, except for actually doing the homework and knowing the assignment and doing the damn game that people keep asking for. And at this point, I don't even know if I want Ubisoft to do a Splinter Cell game because it's not going to be what I want.
Mm-hmm.
No,
It's going to be some mashup form with their usual formula, a bunch of icons vomited onto a map, and Sam's going to have to run around and try to like do all these stupid side quests and all this other weird, stupid stuff. I was fully expecting like a Splinter Cell themed costume to show up in Immortals. or Sam to show up as a god in the tower.
Yeah, like at this point, I think if they actually released a Splinter Cell game, I'd cry because they'd be like, "Here's Sam Fisher in Washington D.C. in a massive hub world."
Right.
Like you could ride around on a bike or on top of a drone like it's Watch Dogs Legion.
On top of a drone.
It's like, why do I feel like I was over here in the Division 2 just last week?
Yeah, why does it feel like Division?
It's like, man, this looks very familiar.
Yeah, it's like Slomo said, in the live chat, Ubisoft is only about chasing trends, and he's absolutely right. I think they even mentioned this on a investors call recently where they said they were going to start doing this. But I don't know if it was you, Nick, but I think you may have said that this game lacks soul. It does, man. Like some of the character design models, the outfits and everything, just for me at least, looks super generic. And then there's that character with the Sam Fisher goggles, and I'm like, why Ubisoft? Why are you dangling this carrot? Like it's so blatant now, and it's so ridiculous that I almost expect now moving forward every Ubisoft game, like Eric said, like every Ubisoft game moving forward, the next Assassin's Creed is going to have a Sam Fisher character in it, or like Sam Fisher like outfit. You'll be an assassin with goggles.
Ubi used to be like my go-to developer, man. Like I don't.
Oh, me too. Prince of
Persia.
Yeah.
Anymore. Like I don't. When they announce stuff, I'm like, okay, because it doesn't speak to me.
Yeah.
I played Immortals, and I overall I really did enjoy Immortals, but Immortals could have been a really cool thing that they could have done if they just kept it to like truly like a 30-hour game. And it was done. I got to the point, like I did finish the game, but there was a point there where I was like, just let me out. For the love of God, just let me go. You know what I'm saying? And that's like all their games now. As I'm playing Origins, I'm like, I'm invested. I put the time in. I'm enjoying what's going on. I kind of want to see it to the end. I just get to a point where I just start ignoring everything and I just start pushing my way through. Because it's no longer It's no longer built for me because I'm ignoring all of their microtransaction bullshit. I'm not buying anything from them. They keep pushing it in your face every time you log into the games. They're like, you want this pack? Hey, you stuck on this? Get this weapon pack. No. So you just end up pushing to the end and you don't really care anymore.
Tom Clancy is rolling around in his grave trying to figure out what the hell Ubisoft is doing with his name.
And he's buried alive too.
Hey man, like this is ridiculous. Tom Clancy games are not action shooters. Tom Clancy games are tactical shooters. All of his stuff is based on tactical. Around shooting people in colorful costumes, not tactical at all. I don't understand why they threw his name on this. Like this game could literally be anything. They want to bring in people who are fans of Tom Clancy, and they try to throw that out in our face. It's utter disrespect, man.
Yeah.
It's a great point, B. I mean, they are using. I mean, it's clear they're using the Tom Clancy name to sell this product, right?
So I think the best way.
It wasn't Tom Clancy's Immortals: Phoenix Rising.
No. I mean,
right.
And so I wonder how this game. I mean, obviously I haven't played the game yet, so I'm not going to say maybe the gameplay ends up turning out well, right? Maybe the mechanics work well. Maybe they do something different than Apex Legends. I don't know, but yeah, I agree with you, B. I think they're just cashing in on that Tom Clancy name, hoping that it attracts people. I don't think it's going to have that effect that they hope it's going to have with Tom Clancy, because you're right, B. It's not a Tom Clancy game, man. Like Splinter Cell when it first came out, right? was like a Tom Clancy game. Rainbow Six was when that first came out. But this game is not that. You're absolutely right, B. I'm sorry. Go ahead, OBM. You got to chime in, man.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to to cut you off there. I guess the best way to kind of summarize everything we saw there. So remember everything we just said in the last segment about diversity and creativity. So take the exact opposite, the complete polar opposite of everything we said there. And I think we can apply it to this segment. And I think that would be like a perfect summary of what we're seeing right now with Ubisoft. And it does. It feels like they're creatively broke. And I think the thing is, and I think, B, I think you might be onto something with, some of the issues these AAAs are having is because it kind of in the stratosphere of the money they're dealing with now, because these are now, multi-billion-dollar corporations. I think, like Ubisoft is probably market cap. It's well over 10 billion, right? These are just giant companies with a board of investors. And it becomes so, obviously at that point, it becomes very data driven. They're not looking to necessarily create the next big thing. They're looking to see where the data leads them. And the problem with that, anytime, I think there's a time and there's a balance there when it comes, and I'm somebody who works in data and analytics, but when you start talking about something that's like artistic or creative, when you chase trends, it's really hard to innovate or create something new or interesting. And so I just think right now what you're seeing is with a lot of these big corporations, like in gaming, is a lot of them have been like trying to chase those trends. They're trying to go with what the data tells them, and what the data tells them is to keep making the same damn games. And especially, a lot of times we get caught up in these, in the sales and say, well, this game sold 5 million, so it must have done well. Well, what these investors are looking for, they're looking for more, and they're looking for each of these games not to just make money. They're looking for these games to make lots and lots of money and to exist as platforms, like in of themselves, because I think the reason why, you start to see some of the other, like Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft have that opportunity to take more risk because they're trying to drive people to a platform. So the games don't have to exist as a platform. But for these other AAA developers, their games do have to kind of exist in of themselves. They're not like, it's not like part of a team, right? Like they have to justify, each game has to justify itself in the boardroom. It's not like the collective lineup of games has to like really complement each other, like you would think about like a lineup, or like when you build a sports team, you want to have players that do different things. Well, it's not like that. They're all kind of, and that's why you start to see this formula, with them, and it's not just them. You saw Square trying to chase it with the Avengers, which was like kind of a boring ass kind of paint by numbers looter game, using the Avengers there. And Ubisoft WB said similar things in their investor calls, like they're looking to make these games. That's why you've seen Rocksteady's been now spending years, and they're trying to figure out how to make a gas game. And that's just it's where it is. And again, it's kind of interesting, these first two topics, they do serve truly as polar opposites, and so hopefully I don't expect this. I don't know, we'll see what happens. You never know. Obviously they can always iterate on it, they can try different things. I'll probably give it a try. It's free, but it's not nothing there really looks that inspiring as a gamer, really, even in terms of time. But you hope that some of the push from the other side starts to creep up into the AAA space, kind of like a bottom up push. And so we'll see how that works out. But right now where it stands, like it feels like Ubisoft is creatively broke.
Yeah,
with some of these other AAAs.
And you got to believe too, like if this game doesn't work out for them, they'll just go back to the drawing board, use existing assets, and slap another name on it, and try it again. I think at this point they'll just keep going back to the well until they hit, right? Because if you think about it, the money they're probably putting into this project probably isn't a lot, right? And if they hit, it's going to be huge for them. So they'll probably just keep going back to the well until they eventually hit.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like with what B said with that. I forgot the name of the game, B, that you said release and it was gone the next day. but that's kind of what they're doing here. They tried that battle royale and that tanked, and now they're doing this. And if this doesn't succeed, they'll do something else. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this game does in that crowded space of free to play first person shooters or shooters. I do want to move on to, by the way, big shout out to everyone in the live chat. We have over 100 people watching right now. Please hit that like button if you haven't done so already. Really appreciate the support as always. We got 3 dislikes. Cool. I didn't get a chance to talk about this on last Friday's BRAP rant, but we did get some news that Sony's skipping Gamescom this year, and I can't say I'm really surprised by that per se. They really look. We know they bowed out at E3. That happened. I forget when that happened. What, a year or 2 years ago? So they're not really at E3. Prior to the release of the PlayStation 5, they were going to attend. They were going to attend smaller shows to kind of showcase the PlayStation 5, and then of course the pandemic hit, and so now Gamescom's coming around. They're not going to be there. It's another big event where Sony won't have any presence, if you will. I'm going to go to you, Nick, with this. Do you think that Sony missing these events might come back and bite them in the ass, or are they so far ahead of the game right now and just have such strong brand recognition that it doesn't even matter?
Here's the thing. With PlayStation, it's one of those things, and it's to a certain extent it's gaming in general. Gaming is kind of blown up in a way now that you don't really have to hunt for it anymore. Like, I get Google News push notifications about gaming on our work computers. Like, it's not as niche as it used to be. So there's more ways than doing these big shows and everything else in terms of getting your stuff out there. And I think with the success that PlayStation has had with State of Play, that they will continue to use that model to their advantage, as it's a low-cost way for them to get their games featured, and they don't have to compete for mind share with other publishers or developers. Now, myself, I love it when everyone shows up at events because it's a big party and it's a great time. But, times are changing and everything else. And I really don't think it's that big of an issue, honestly. It just is what it is. It's weird that PlayStation talked about how they were going to do all those hundreds of events, and then, we hit COVID, and now we're just kind of left going, so what's the game plan? Are we doing hundreds of events? Are we only doing State of Play? I don't think they're ever going to come out and say it. I just think by the end of 2021, 2022, we're kind of going to know what to expect in terms of how they're going to showcase stuff. At the end of the day, how they showcase is irrelevant. It's about what they showcase is what matters.
It's a great point, Nick. I didn't even think of it like that. Like, it's not when they show it, but what they show. And perhaps that's, I guess because we've become so accustomed to them being at big shows and kind of, having the big announcements that, Microsoft's obviously taking a different approach. They are super engaged, I think, with the community and being at these shows where Sony's kind of been quiet. I think for some people, though, I have seen some people kind of complain about that or criticize Sony, saying, hey, you know what, maybe Sony's being a little bit too quiet, where maybe they should be a little more transparent per se. But I think you bring up a great point, Nick, that at the end of the day, like, we all know, like, we could sit there and say Sony's being too quiet, or they're maybe not as transparent as Microsoft, but they drop a God of War trailer, a new one, right, for the new God of War Ragnarok, and everyone's going to forget that, right?
Yeah, and to the point, honestly, I think here's the thing. The biggest complaint I have isn't actually with PlayStation itself. It's with whiny fan feedback. Because for the longest time, for like a year, all I heard constantly on anytime I wrote up any PlayStation news is PlayStation doesn't need an event. They're so big that they don't need to do these big showcases. I'm like, cool, that's great feedback. Make sure, you're screaming that from the rooftops. And now I'm seeing the same people going, well, why isn't Sony doing this big showcase? And da-da-da. You got to make up your minds. It's one or the other. You can't give people feedback and then complain when they listen to your feedback. That's the thing. It's like If PlayStation wants to do state of plays going forward, I'm fine with that because I think the pacing has been great. They've been doing that. Xbox has to market in a different way because their value of how they want to deliver their games and how they want to do their vision for their console is completely polar opposite to PlayStation. So of course they're going to approach it two different ways. Neither one is right or wrong. It's just two different ways of doing business.
Yeah, it's only right or wrong when, again, your whole being is fueled by, again, I'll say this, arguing with other nobodies online. But in business, nobody.
Oh my God.
No, for real. I mean, because I see people say what you said, Enrique, like the transparency, the transparency. I said, because a company steps out and says something or makes a statement, that's not always transparency. That's just them engaging. You know,
but I think like to your point,
I could tell. Well, no, I mean, I could tell you tuna with lettuce is better. That's not me being transparent.
Not a Subway. Not a Subway. It's not.
Right. You know, no,
it is better. That's science. Isn't that science? No, just keep going.
Right. You know, it's just, I don't know. It's just funny because I see like a lot of the back and forth too with you know they're not respecting you as a consumer. They're not respecting. You know where the respect comes from? Again, it's like Nick said. Show me a product I want. I decide if I want it or not, and we keep it moving. If you're no longer doing that, I no longer rock with your product.
Yeah. No, I mean that's
the end of the day. You know, and so far
point,
they have not done that. I mean, I'm a gamer. I got 1,000 other things during my day that distract me from worrying about what Sony's doing all day long or what Microsoft is doing all day long. That's just the reality. I know we're a gaming podcast and we talk and we love gaming, this and that, but that's just the reality of it. I don't have all day to worry about what these companies are doing.
That is a great point, E. Yeah, but I think some of that though. I think some of the, I guess I don't know if it's criticism or conversation around Sony not being vocal as they used to goes back to the fact that in previous leadership, in the last console generation of the PlayStation 4 and even PlayStation 3, Sony was very much different in how they were handling things and engaging with the community. So I think for some people, maybe it's a little, I don't know, maybe if off-putting is the right word, but it definitely kind of makes people say, wait a minute, what's going on now? Like, we're so used to them being vocal. And someone in the live chat says, I want to see that swag that Sony used to have, the mic drop moments and stuff. But to your point, E, I get what you're saying, too.
Well, from an excitement standpoint, that is true. I mean, you want that engagement. You want to, you definitely... I'm not downplaying it. Trust me, I'm not downplaying, the excitement of what that means when these companies talk and when they show things. But like Nick said, there's different ways of engagement these days. And if it's on one side of it, if you're saying, let's say for like the Microsoft side, I see like a lot of the Xbox, fans say, well, they're blazing a different trail. They're showing you where it's going to be and they're doing this and this and that. And it's like, does that not apply to taking other avenues on how you show content, how you talk to your consumer base? Because again, when these things happen, these shows and these state of plays, they're talking to a very specific audience. The majority don't give a shit.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
I always use my friends and family as the study or the core, the case study. Because they're not engaged in Twitter. They're not engaged in like gaming community. They play games, but they're not engaged all the time. I have not once had my cousin who's a PlayStation gamer, like he's always rocked with PlayStation. I haven't had him once hit me up and say, yo, what's up with these $7 games? He just hasn't. And we talk about stuff all the time, but that has not been a topic of conversation when we talk about games. It's just, and if I text him right now and say, hey, did you watch that state of play? He goes, what the hell is a state of play? He wouldn't know. It's just, that's what I'm saying. We live in this bubble and we think everything revolves around how we think and everything that they do and all these moves. They have a whole audience that they have to speak to. It's the same thing with Apple. It's the same thing with Samsung. It's the same thing all across the board. We just eat it all day long. So we're always looking for the next meal. And they can't feed us enough.
It's been a week without news. Like, what the hell?
Oh my God,
You know,
it's a wrap. This company that's been around for 25 years,
They're in
has had
trouble.
successful console generations. They're done because they haven't said anything for 2 months.
they're in trouble.
you know? And it's the same thing for Microsoft. It's like, if people hey, this E3, if they don't show it, it's a wrap for them. It's been a wrap for 7 damn E3s. Yeah, I'm 100% into the whole wait till E3 thing. I understand that. I get that. That is true. That is the meme. But I'm like, are they $1 billion company? Or are they not? Are they not invested? Or they not? Just because they may not have a great E3 show does not mean that they're done. They're still going to go back and figure it out and come back with something else. And you are going to eat it up.
You know what? Yeah, on that note, it's funny because over at Xbox Era, we did this like look back thing where we kind of did a live look back at some of the old E3s for Xbox leading up to the E3 this year. And we actually did 2005 and 2006. Guess what? Both those E3s sucked. they were not good. And I remember Enrique, I don't know if you remember, because, back then there was like Team Xbox and stuff like that. You remember?
I remember Team Xbox. That was my go-to website, man.
Yeah, like after GameSpot, that was the other place to go if you were an Xbox dude wanting to talk about games. And I remember back then.
Brute Force?
that was the Halo Killer, yeah. Of course, that game.
That Killzone 2 trailer.
Yes, those Halo Killers killed themselves. But anyway,
I used to show off the trailer of Brute Force in the GameSpot forums when I used to console war for Xbox.
Same here. Hey, Enrique, I think that's how we met.
Actually, I think it is OBM. All jokes aside, man, I think that's how we met.
I think it is. It's all coming back to me now. But
I think I was hyping up Peter Molyneux and what project, whatever it was called, which eventually became Fable.
Project Ego. Well, because you're going to step on the acorn and it was going to grow a tree. Remember that?
Yeah, I knew all about the list wars, man. I used to list all the game Project Ego and. What was it? Brute Force and Reckless and yeah. Anyhow,
there's a few things turned out, but yeah, that wasn't the best. Those Blinks, right? That was going to change the game.
Blinks was going to be better than Mario. Yeah, I remember that
because of the hard drive. Remember?
And Voodoo Vince. Remember Voodoo Vince? It was going to be the best platformer. I remember that. I remember buying that game. Okay. I didn't like Voodoo Vince.
You can't. That's like Phil's favorite game, so you got to be careful. I'm just kidding.
Mecha was fine though.
Mecha Assault was good.
Go ahead, Obi. I interrupted, man. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, no, I got way off track there. It's chasing squirrels, but I remember back in 2005. You remember like Xbox got dominated like 6-1. And they're like, if they don't come out here and kill it in at E3 at 2005 and just hit the ground running with that extra year lead, it's like they're dead. Like they might as well just get out of the business. They came out and I remember like that was like you remember they opened up with the Perfect Dark with the MTV thing before that, which was a complete bomb. And then they had the E3 2005, which wasn't that good either. There was I think Gears of War was maybe one of the things that kind of saved it. And in 2006, they ended the show, I think, with basically a Windows. It was like they had Bill Gates on stage for like a half hour. I was like, I don't even know what he was saying after a while. We were watching. I was like, are we seriously we got to finish this, don't we? It was like. It's like they're trying to bring in Windows, and they ended up killing it. And at the end of it, and the reason I bring those up is because every year we say, and they were saying going into this E3 they got to kill it or they're dead, and it's like they didn't kill it those 2 times. And you know what? They brought it with the games. 2006 Gears of War released in the fall. It kind of blew people away. They started, and all of a sudden, then Mass Effect came out, a few months later, and they started to catch fire with the game. So from a business standpoint, I do think it is kind of, it's always been overblown, like those giant events. I do think, however, that I do think you have to respect your hardcore base, like your enthusiast. And I don't have a super strong opinion about, Sony not being here because I don't know what their plan is right now. I don't know if they're going to try to take the Nintendo route. Like Nintendo seems to do really well with the way they do things. And it's not your traditional E3s. Like they just basically have a direct. So we'll kind of have to wait and see there. I do think that, for the hardcore, part of the experience is kind of the wine and dine leading up to those releases. And I remember I talked to you about that, I think last year when it was like, Microsoft's messaging was kind of off. Remember, like, we were talking about how they just couldn't really seem to get their messaging right after the Hellblade release. They kind of kept tripping on themselves. And like I said, hey, that's part of the, they do need to get that right, because the enthusiasts do, value that. But I don't think it has to be like always a giant event, as long as you can figure out some way to kind of wine and dine them up to the release. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't know what they're going to do. If they don't do anything, if they just sort of take it for granted, right now they can, because they're selling out every console, and they're probably going to sell out every console through 2022.
They just hit 10 million PlayStation 5 sold, which is the fastest. Which for Sony, it's the fastest 10 million out of all the PlayStation consoles ever.
Yeah,
think about that. That's supply constraints too. In the middle of a pandemic with chip shortages. I mean, imagine if they didn't have supply constraints.
They could be at 15 now. Who knows?
This thing. That's pretty damn impressive.
No, definitely, and there's also a chance that they're looking at that and like, we'll hold our bullets until we have stock. So that's the other thing that could be happening. I think you have to still be careful. You still have to kind of, you don't want your base to get too frustrated. Yeah. Because in light of the fact they are dealing with actual competition this generation, so that you don't want to get your base that hasn't had a chance to move over yet too frustrated. But at the same time, they might just be saving a lot of their bullets, because it's like, we can't sell any more consoles this year anyway. It's like we're going to sell everything we make through this whole year. But that's my thoughts.
Yeah. Let me jump in on that too, because I wanted to be understood. I'm not saying that anybody should sit back and feel like they're being taken advantage of, because you plunk your money down. You should feel like, this consumer, it's not a thing of like caring or whatever, but you don't want to feel like, I gave you my dough and now you're not really saying anything. And on top of that, if the product isn't there, then that's a whole different thing, right? My point being is, it's still a balancing act. Like right now, there's still so many things going on. Like again, pandemic, all different types of things that are still going on. We're not through any of that. So I caution people not to get too invested in what goes on console war wise, because hyperbole is the fuel that runs the social media, right?
Yeah.
So every week, it's like, people are going back and forth over these things. Take, for example, the state of play that they recently did. I thought that was an engaging state of play. It gave some idea of what's coming up, what's going on. And to me, that was enough. Going back to playing my games. But it became this thing of where, that was trash because they didn't answer Microsoft. Well, you built up in your head that they had to have an answer for what Microsoft did at E3, because they weren't at E3. So you spent the last few weeks building up this theater of the mind of what should be. And then when that didn't happen, the funny part is, if you did the assignment, you saw they told you what was going to be there.
Right, they did.
Now, if you decided to run off and say, well, they didn't show me X, Y, Z. Well, they told you they weren't going to show you X, Y, Z. So that is on you. But they're never going to match what you built up in your own mind. No company, that's not even fair to any company to do that. So before I pass it on, I'll just say they're going to be fine unless they just completely, I know people keep praying for the arrogant Sony to show up again, because that's great for YouTube views. That's great for the conversation on Twitter or whatever the case may be. But if they can survive like the flute guy E3, and if Microsoft can survive the Comic-Con where Alan Tudyk stuck a microphone in his nose and Larry Herd literally walked off the set. Like,
yes,
what the hell is going on?
Never forget that. Boy, Major Nelson was hot. He was like,
watching that, I was like, yo, this is going crazy.
I thought Major Nelson was going to curse him out.
I'm like, what's going on here? They're going to be fine. We're going to keep moving, because guess what? We're gamers and we have short memories. They can be long memories if we feel like we're being completely abused, but the minute you put a game in front of us that we want, we're popping with, we have a very short memory.
Yeah, that's a great
people
point.
People are so damn bored out here. This community as a whole is so damn bored. I've literally on a slow week seen people argue over trailer analytics and everything else. Like, who gives a shit, honestly? Just enjoy the stuff. Enjoy if you're being catered to. And if something doesn't strike you the right way, voice yourself in a, like an adult. My kid, my 6-year-old child communicates better than most people on social media. And that's absolutely terrifies me. Like, it's not hard to be like, you know what, this isn't for me, but maybe it's for someone else, or wherever the case may be. Like, there's so many I'm throwing up air quotes right now, narrative changes on a day-to-day basis. I don't even keep up anymore. Like, I just go, oh, what are we arguing about? Oh, we're arguing about this? Okay, cool. Log off.
Yeah.
Right. No, that's
we must not forget that Jim Ryan over PlayStation not so recently. Everybody was all afraid about when they did the consolidation, the studios over in Europe, and I mean the multiple positions that got eliminated in Japan studio. So there's a lot of cleaning up that he's doing on the back end. I'm sure once all that is done and they have a clear vision of what they want to do and where they want to be, they'll get back to who they were. I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. That's a great point. You're right. There's still some things that because let's face it, like they consolidated. Like it was very segmented, right? You had PlayStation Europe, PlayStation Japan, PlayStation North America, and look, for lack of a better word, or North America kind of won the internal fight, if you will, right? By saying, hey, we put out the Western studios, the ones that put out the big bangers, and they kind of won that argument. So that's a great point, B. I do want to grab some super chats real quick, though. We have Carlos Alvarado with the $2 super chat. Says PlayStation has enough good. They will have a pass this gen. I don't know if I agree with that, Carlos, but maybe that's possible. And then we have
I get what he's saying, because when you look at like the hardcore base, let's honestly think
that's
about
true.
it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I say this all the time because it's funny how like any given day people want to kill the company. It doesn't matter what the company is, right? But I'll say this again, and in particular, like for like some of the Xbox guys, it's like you guys hung in there when Microsoft had a very rocky generation last gen, but you hung in there because you like the platform. It may not have been give you all the games that you wanted, but you're still there. You're a gamer. You still rock with it. So I don't understand this whole thing where it's like Sony's done because they're being quiet. They're not being transparent. They're doing this. They're doing that. It's like you guys gave Microsoft time to fix their flubs, to fix their issues, or whatever was perceived as issues. You gave them that same amount of time. Why is it any different for what Sony may be doing? Sony's had some odd messaging here and there. They've had some things happen or whatever, but their base is going to give them the time to figure this stuff out too. It's the same thing.
Well, and like let's be a little real here. Microsoft's 2017 of being quiet and everything else is nothing compared to Sony's, quote unquote, being quiet of 2020 and 2021. Like, let's not pretend that you don't have games to play. Like, it's not like we didn't have Demon's Souls, Ratchet and Clank, and all these other games that you can play on your PlayStation 5 back, when people were being patient with Xbox. And as a person who was patient with Xbox through that time frame, we got, State of Decay 2, Cuphead, some games I really love. But when you're talking about like gaps, like Sony's got games all the way into next year. Xbox has games all the way into next year. They are fighting for mindshare right now. I don't know what more people to want from them. Like, I don't know if you want Jim Ryan to show up with some like hand lotion and a bottle of wine, or like, I don't know what people want from these companies anymore. Like, I honestly don't understand, because I spend more time arguing with myself internally of what game I'm going to play next, and I am not concerned about a game that could be 2 or 3 years out. It's just where I'm at.
I do that to the point where I tire myself out and end up taking a nap.
Look, that's just a dad thing. Once you get the kids in bed and everything, you turn on the console, you're like, oh, look at all these games. Like,
Yep.
You know what?
It's like overload.
I think that's the truth. Yeah, when you're a parent, you got a full-time job.
Yep.
That's like the meta. You should just get an achievement for choosing something at night.
For real. It's like, all right, I'm just not playing this.
Oh, man.
Yeah. That's the problem that I have is I often can't decide what to play because I have too much still going on. So I can't figure it out. It's like, I don't know. God bless when people say it's dry. I'm like, I don't know what you're looking for.
Well, I do think, no, I think you guys kind of hit it. I mean, the companies, just in general, everything is probably more promising than it's ever been across the board, no matter what platform you're on, than it's ever been. I do think that we are, I don't know, like almost have an addiction to the news. Like I almost feel like but I'm at Xbox here, so I guess it's okay for us to be slightly addicted. At least there's a reason. But, it almost feels like it's kind of unhealthy for that's like a week goes by and there's not some breaking news and people start to flip out. I see that all around though. And people do overreact. I think social media causes like these, I don't know, these feedback loops that just get people like into these frenzies and to overreact about every little. It's like they're feeling. It's not even like they're feeling every punch. They're feeling like every footstep. It's like they're over feeling every little move that's happening, and it. It's just, I think it's just kind of the social media thing we're living through. But like I said, I don't think anybody here was really questioning, whether there's trouble, but in terms of the business right now. I think the question is like, can they do better for their their hardcore base? There is expectations that have been built up over the years that and now I guess you're kind of subverting those expectations by kind of changing the format. But if this ends up becoming the new format where they just do like a state of play every 3 months, or they do something like Nintendo, eventually that'll become the norm, and I think people will kind of that they'll just start to look forward to those, right? They'll get it. And I think right now is anytime you're I think a lot of it just has to do with what your expectations are going in. And then once, they kind of setting the expectations is almost more, as I wouldn't say more important. It's almost as important as what you deliver, right? Because like, if you really, and I know that they did kind of say what was going to be at that show. I think people still had, unreasonable expectations going in. So hopefully, thanks to the insiders, the Sony insiders that are now what, like they shoot, they shoot a worse percentage than Simmons from the outside. So
oh wow.
To any of the NBA players here, but or fans here, but that's it. I think it's just really kind of once they kind of settle those expectations that you'll probably hear this not become news anymore.
Yeah, let me grab this super chat here from our good buddy Godzilla with the $10 super chat. Thank you for that super chat, sir. Says a bit out of the topic, but what are y'all's thoughts about Psychonauts 2 controversy? Personally, I find it a bit silly, like director's cut shenanigans. Great show as always, boys. A bit tipsy. Thank you for that super chat, Godzilla. What do you guys think about that? I think he's referring to the God mode in Psychonauts 2. I think that's what he's referring to.
I almost need him to be more specific in his super chat because Psychonauts 2 is like the wave right now. You could pick an argument over it. It can either be that, Enrique, or it can be the graphics. It can be the art style. It can be it can be 100 different things with Psychonauts 2 right now.
I think I know what he's talking about. So, like right now, the Series X is getting a special next gen, and the S.
Right.
Yeah, they're getting next gen versions. The PS5 is basically just getting the PS4 version. So I think it just has to do with the fact that they had an obligation to make the PS4 because they had to fulfill their obligations. And who knows when they got
this game was also crowdfunded too, though. Like it was crowdfunded, and then Microsoft eventually bought Double Fine, but this game was crowdfunded to get from the get-go. That's part of it, I think, too.
Yeah, and I, who knows what they're going to do. I mean, maybe eventually they will give them, provide the PS5 upgrade. We've seen a few other games do that, where initially it is like the last gen version, and then the new gen version gets a patch released down the road. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. But I think that's what he's talking about. I don't think it was anything. I don't think it was them trying to throw. I mean, they're not going to try to kill their own sales at this point. If they're going to put the game out there, I think they want it to sell on everything they put it on. I don't think that was it doesn't make business sense to me that was some sort of nefarious decision. I mean, it could have been, but I doubt it. I think it's more a state of, like Microsoft put extra funding for their version, and who knows when they got the PS5 dev kit, and we'll have to see what happens with that version.
Is it extra funding, or is it has something to do with smart delivery though?
It could be that too. Yeah, I don't even know. I don't think we know the exact reasons. They haven't.
Well, I kind of snarked about this online, and someone pointed out to me that the Series X and S versions are the only versions with HDR. Not even the PC version has HDR, so that might have something to do with the auto HDR in the series consoles. So that could be, that could just be what it is. But I think people are just. It's crazy to me because me and Eric talk about Psychonauts off and on for the past few months since I played the original a few months ago. And I haven't heard this game talked about this much. It's a shame it's not because the original's amazing, but I hope people go and play this game after they whine about it for 2 months. Because
Nick, you people aren't going to play it, man. I had that conversation with Eric. I've seen people say that they didn't like the first Psychonauts and are all of a sudden enthralled with what they've seen in the second one. I'm like, well, wait a minute. They're the same damn game for the most part. There isn't anything, at least that I've seen, that leads me to believe that this game is dramatically different from the first. But I guarantee you, Nick, I think a lot of these people won't end up playing this game. I hope that's not the case because I'm a big Double Fine fan. I mean, I think Tim Schafer is great, I love the first Psychonauts.
I've seen all manner of back and forth over Psychonauts too. You got people saying it looks like trash. It looks like a PS2 game. I kind of laugh at some of that too because I know these are people who never touched the first game.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if they did, they would realize it's actually a very accomplished platformer. It's a really good game. Has a cult following or whatever. But yeah, that's ultimately what it comes down to. It's a bunch of people going back and forth, and none of them on any side are going to play it or have any real interest in it. Whether on PlayStation or whether on Xbox. You got people who are championing it because it's a Game Pass game or it's an Xbox game, and then you have PS5 guys who are making this deal about the versions. And I mean, you got post versions of The Outer Worlds, you got post versions of Doom Eternal, you got post versions of what else? I'm trying to think what other titles got updates. So again, I think it's more of a thing of it has not a roadmap, so to speak, has not really truly been addressed. I don't think it's anything that's being egregious.
Right. Yeah, I would agree.
That's just me. But I know, again, social media bubble turns everything into an egregious thing. Again, it's good for business. It's good for YouTube business. It's good for Twitter follows. It's good for all that stuff.
Well, hopefully all the controversy does drive people to it. I do hope you're wrong there because, I do agree. I mean, there's a reason it was crowdfunded, right? They couldn't find a publisher for a reason. It wasn't going to sell. It's not something that ticks all the data and analytic boxes, going back to our conversation earlier. But, Tim Schafer, the one thing his teams have been known for, it's not necessarily pushing the boundaries of, graphics and technology. It's really more about the writing, the characters, the art design. So I am really excited. I hope because it is on Game Pass that this is something, and who knows, maybe all this controversy gets people playing it. But I do hope that was one of my hopes is some of these developers like a Tim Schafer, that maybe they feel like they deserve better in terms of some of the commercial recognition and support in an industry that putting it on a platform like Game Pass will get it the attention that hopefully that they haven't gotten really since.
I don't think it is,
probably,
man.
Yeah, we'll see. I hope.
I just have this sinking feeling that it's not going to get the attention. I hope I'm wrong. I just don't see this game being a game that really stands out to a lot of people, even on Game Pass. I think, I don't know. I could be wrong. I just think this isn't, and I don't want to generalize or paint the Xbox, consumer base with a big, generalize their taste, but I just don't see this game kind of resonating with a lot of people on the Xbox console. I could be wrong though. I could be dead wrong.
I will throw out though that this is also going to be day one on PC Game Pass, so I think that's going to be. There's a lot of that base is probably
PC. Absolutely, I can see
think on the
PC.
side, I think PC.
I can see that.
Definitely.
I think this could do pretty well on the PC because this is the kind of thing that might appeal over there. So
No,
Look,
I would agree with that.
I'm hoping people give it a shot and try it because I honestly do think a lot of people sleep on the first game. The first game, like Def Boy said, it's got a very dark tone. It's got a lot of humor. And the platforming is really good, and it still holds up really well. So I've been anticipating this game for a very, very, very long time. I'm happy that it is. I will be playing it. Again, gaming taste. If it's something that you look at and go, "Hey, it's not for me," that's fine. All well and good. But yeah, it's just funny that it's become like so many other things. It's become like the hyperbole bullet in the gun.
Yes, it absolutely has, for better or for worse, but.
Yeah.
It definitely has. I want to move on to the explosive lawsuit against Activision-Blizzard, which I don't know. I'm reading this and I can't believe what I'm reading. And this broke. Bloomberg Law broke this. Jason Schreier actually retweeted the article. I don't think he wrote it. I think it was someone else at Bloomberg that wrote the article, but. Anyhow, Activision Blizzard, they're being sued by the state of California, and I can give you some quick bullet points here. But basically, they are accused of fostering a frat boy culture in which female employees are subjected to constant sexual harassment, unequal pay, retaliation. According to this lawsuit that's filed by the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing, that this is a byproduct of a 2-year investigation by the state agency. And again, they found that the company discriminated against females in terms of conditions of employment, including compensation, assignment, promotion, and termination. Company leadership consistently failed to take steps to prevent discrimination, harassment, and retaliation, the agency said. According to the complaint filed Tuesday in the Los Angeles Superior Court, female employees make up around 20% of the Activision workforce and are subjected to a pervasive frat boy workplace culture, including cube crawls. This blew my mind. Cube crawls? I've never heard of this before. And cube crawls in which male employees drink copious amounts of alcohol as they crawl their way through various cubicles in the office and often engage in inappropriate behavior toward female employees. The agency alleges male employees to play video games during the workday while delegating responsibilities to female employees, engage in sexual banter, and joke openly about rape, among other things. Female employees allege being held back from promotions because of the possibility they might become pregnant, being criticized for leaving to pick up the children up from daycare, and being kicked out of lactation rooms so male colleagues could use the room for meetings, the complaint says. Female employees working on the World Warcraft team noted that male employees and supervisors would hit on them, make derogatory comments about rape, and otherwise engage in demeaning behavior, the agency alleges. The suit also points to a female Activision employee who took her own life. This is fucking crazy and tragic. Took her own life while on a company trip with her male supervisor. The employee had been subjected to intense sexual harassment prior to her death, including having nude photos passed around at a holiday company party, the complaint says. The agency seeks an injunction forcing compliance with workplace protections, as well as unpaid wages, pay adjustments, back pay, lost wages, benefits for female employees. Holy shit.
Enrique, there was a spokesperson update statement as well. So
yeah, there was.
I didn't know if you saw that, so
I did. I'll get to that here in just a second. But
all right,
holy shit! Like I'm reading this and I'm just disgusted. This is just beyond fucked up. And the fact that this has been going on for so long, seemingly so long, and we know about Ubisoft. We know about we've heard issues of harassment, inappropriate behavior at the workplace. We've heard it at I think it was actually at Rockstar as well.
Quantic Dream. They were in there.
Quantic Dream, yeah, big time. Quantic Dream. and Ubisoft, and now Activision-Blizzard. And now Activision has responded to this. Jason Schreier did retweet this on Twitter. An Activision Blizzard spokesperson sent the following statement in response to these allegations. The statement reads, "We value diversity and strive to foster a workplace that offers inclusivity for everyone." Yeah, like they're gonna say otherwise. There's no place in our company or industry or any industry for sexual misconduct or harassment of any kind. Again, like what else they're gonna say here? We take every allegation seriously and investigate all claims. In cases related to misconduct, action was taken to address the issue. The DFEH includes distorted and in many cases false descriptions of Blizzard's past. We have been extremely cooperative with the DFEH throughout their investigation, including providing them with extensive data and ample documentation, but they refused to inform us what issues they perceived. They were required by law to adequately investigate. We need Hogue Law. I'm waiting for Hogue Law's video on this, by the way. They were required by law to adequately investigate and to have good faith discussions with us to better understand and to resolve any claims or concerns before going to litigation, but they failed to do so. Instead, they rushed to file an inaccurate complaint, as we will demonstrate in court. We are sickened by the reprehensible conduct of the DFEH to drag into the complaint the tragic suicide of an employee whose passing has no bearing whatsoever on this case and with no regard for a grieving family. When we find this behavior to be disgraceful and unprofessional, it is unfortunately an example of how they have conducted themselves throughout the course of their investigation. This type of irresponsible behavior from unaccountable state bureaucrats that are driving many of the state's best businesses out of California. So anyway, there's more here. I'm not going to read the rest, but basically they're obviously refuting these claims, and it's going to be interesting how this plays out in a court of law. Now, these allegations, this lawsuits, a lot of these allegations are pretty. I mean, wow. If these allegations are true, I mean, holy shit. I don't even know. I mean, this is just terrible. And
it's like some Wolf of Wall Street type level shit.
Yeah, you know, it really is. But you know what though, man? If this is true though, it wouldn't surprise me though. It just, because I haven't seen it in a long time, but I've seen the sexual banter. I've seen I've seen like women be talked to in a way that's kind of inappropriate. You know, I haven't seen it in years, but I came from an industry where that stuff kind of happened, where it was kind of a male dominated industry that I was in, and it was like a fraternity. We were in sales, and very much a high testosterone environment and a lot of drinking, and yeah, I saw some of that stuff, and it exists. But this is just, I mean, if this is true, this is very damning for Activision-Blizzard. And if it is true, there needs to be, obviously, I think there needs to be some changes. I think we would all probably agree with that. But I want to go to you, Nick. And I don't know, Nick, if you're going to cover this story for Lords of Gaming, but what are your initial thoughts hearing these allegations or of the lawsuit and the investigation by the state of California?
Here's the thing. Of course, with a lot of legal lawsuits like this, it becomes a he said, she said scenario where, of course, Blizzard PR is going to go, no, this never happens. What are you talking about? And of course, accusers are, of course, going to be telling their side of the story, which, is it inflamed or wherever the case may be. Operating off the fact that this is a factual report, the thing is that I'm more inclined to believe these allegations because there is a history here, and a lot of people kind of ignored a lot of the Activision stuff over the past few years, because the main thing is Activision basically makes Call of Duty and a handful of Blizzard stuff, but Blizzard's been pretty quiet, so people have kind of faded to the background. 2020, last year, a report came out, and basically Blizzard employees put a spreadsheet together to start comparing their wages, and there was wage disparities across positions all over, and a lot of it came down to gender and racial and everything else. A lot of people were making way less money for the same job, and that was a huge thing that was brought up, and this was on the back of Bobby Kotick getting a $40 million year-end bonus. Here's the thing: Blizzard hires at minimum wage. Minimum wage in California is $7.25. There's been multiple reports over the years, starting all the way back from 2012, of people working for Blizzard and living out of their cars because they can't afford to live in the state of California on a $7.25 wage. There's been abuse of contractors. I've had personal people I know within the industry that have interned for Activision said it was some of the most horrible shit they ever had to work through in their career of, video game development. This stuff doesn't. Let me say this: it's abhorrent, but it's believable, and it's because they've let this toxicity just kind of sit there at all levels of Blizzard and Activision, and they've just never done anything about it. And we're sitting there going, this is absolutely abhorrent, and how could this happen? We're watching it with Ubisoft right now. They have the two of the most accused people in Ubisoft of sexual misconduct are leading the new Assassin's Creed project. This kind of leadership breeds these work environments. And the thing is like, I'm not saying every single person that works at Activision Blizzard's an abuser or anything like that, because it's probably not. But the thing is if your boss feels comfortable treating people like garbage, other people will feel comfortable treating other people like garbage. And as soon as you start having that sort of a workplace environment, it's gone. There's nothing useful left in it. And this really points to the struggles we've seen with Activision Blizzard and their ability to put out games. If this is all going on a regular basis, it's not a wonder they can't put out a game. It's not a wonder we haven't seen Call of Duty yet. It's not there's so many things this points to. And all I can keep coming back to is the idea that Bobby Kotick walked away with a $40 million bonus while all of this was happening.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point, Nick, and you're right. By the way, you're right about leadership. Like I always say, it really does come from the top down, right? Leadership establishes the culture, and if they're bad actors at leadership levels, you're going to have a toxic. Like I've lived that. Like I again worked in an industry where there were some bad. I saw my supervisor headbutt one of my employees or one of my colleagues, right? Like it was like I felt like I was working like I was in like a locker room, like a locker room full of football players, right? Where there was cursing and he literally headbutted my colleague, but him doing that, like that behavior wasn't like, it was like almost normal in a way.
Yep.
To have shouting matches with your colleagues. Like I lived through that. It was stressful as hell, and it sucked.
Yep. Like I remember, and without naming any companies, I worked warehousing years ago for a big grocery distribution chain. And when I worked on the midnight shift, if you had an issue with a fellow employee, our supervisor would walk us out behind the back doors and the bay doors out of camera view, and we'd slug it out if we had issues with each other. And that would be that's how things would get solved. If you had an issue with someone, you slugged it out in the parking lot. And like the thing is it's like
UFC in the back.
It sounds so ridiculous, but when it's your well-being on the line, because like as soon as these reports come out, we saw with the Naughty Dog thing, everyone's like, well, if it's so bad, why don't you quit? Okay, so how am I supposed to just quit how I feed my daughter? Like for me, myself, I'm a single income family and I have 2 kids. Like, am I supposed to just quit my job and just go, okay, well, hopefully someone else will hire me in California because this is not a hyper-competitive space at all. But that's where it's at. Like,
that's a great point,
it's just
Nick.
Inexcusable.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. I don't like that go find another job argument. That's kind of, especially with matters related to this type of behavior of harassment, verbal abuse. There's no place for that in the workplace. And I want to open it up to the rest of the panel. Everyone, please, feel free to chime in, with regards to your thoughts about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nick I think he probably put it about as well as you could on that. You know,
Yeah.
couple, additional things, I'd add to that is, yeah, for the people that just say, well, why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you go get another job? As somebody who's been in like a toxic, situation, and this has been years, so it's like, it has nothing to do with I'm in a good situation these days, but as somebody who has been in one of those in the past, I don't think people understand is not only, a lot of these situations, a lot of these places, especially those that have the crunch where you don't have a lot of free time to begin with. If you take a day off, they wonder where the hell they wonder where the hell you are if you take a bathroom break. And then you start to mentally sort of like abuse these people. It really is very hard to free yourself and to get into the right frame of mind, find the right amount of time to like prep everything to go get a new job. It really, they get kind of trapped a lot of times. And especially if there's not, something that's open close by, because that's not the other aspect. But yeah, as I kind of mentioned to somebody in the chat, like I'm a father of a daughter that just turned 16. And, I've talked to, I've talked to a female executive, off the record about things and why she, explains to me like why she is so, proactive, regarding, other females in the workplace in terms of how she sees things. And it's because of the kind of the shit she's been through, through her career, and she's part of, she kind of grew up in her career through like the Good Old Boys network. And fortunately, like I said, the situation is, at least I would hope where I'm at is, is not that kind of environment, but you have to be proactive against it. And, when people say, well, yeah, it could just be, just this person or this one person, that it doesn't define the group. I think it does when you see multiple incidents, it does define leadership, because at the end of the day, you don't have control over people, but you do have control over, you do set the environment, right? Like you do create the environment, and that can allow things like that to happen. So if they're happening more than once and they're serious and they're significant to get to like those certain levels, especially amongst, around leadership, then that is a leadership problem. And that is something like, even as somebody who's like in leadership myself that tries to own that you really have to be super proactive on that stuff. And you can't just slough off anything. You can't just go, oh, that's being misread or whatever. You really have to be, because if you let things slip, one thing does lead to another. And that's probably how they got there. I've worked at a place where, like something happened, and yeah, they took action on the person once it came out, but it's like, but when you kind of like learn about the entire situation, it's like, how did it even get to that point, right? Like, how did somebody ever feel like that emboldened to do that? And that was, I would say that was part of the culture. So you do have to kill this. And as somebody, again, it's got a daughter that's going to be an adult here very soon. I am all for these situations getting blown up, getting in for serious action to end up happening. Because, I hope that people are walking on eggshells, in the few years that my daughter's there, so that, hopefully it's at least, and I'm going to obviously have to raise her to be sort of aware and, not take shit. And I don't think she would anyways, but at the same time, I hope that people are more hyper aware of making sure that, that even if they have to overcompensate, because it can, something that you don't think is that serious can eventually turn into it can affect somebody a lot. And these things do end up, it's not just overnight. It's usually something that builds up. And so you have to not allow that trend to happen.
Yeah. So real quick, so somebody on Twitter, at Alex _Frostwolf, who she has senior social media manager for at Play Apex at Blizzard Entertainment and Activision alum. She said, I left Blizzard after my boss gaslit me so badly my hair started falling out. My profit sharing, which I relied on to make ends meet, was docked due to quote unquote underperforming. And when I went to HR to fight it with proof against his claims, I was told maybe you are underperforming. She then writes, the fucked up part, I hated leaving. Blizzard was my dream job, and I love the work I did there and the people I worked with and still do, to the point of almost returning. But the amount of people who still remain in management positions even after multiple accusations kept me away. Years later, during a studio visit to see some friends, I saw him and we made eye contact. I spent the next 10 minutes locked in the bathroom sobbing. I love Blizzard, I truly did, but they employ predators in every sense. And we all have internally been saying that for years. Jesus.
Oh.
Yeah, I told you it's a leadership issue. And,
Yeah.
and they probably need to start at the very fucking top with the, because it starts at the top. If you allow it to get to that point, it starts there, and that dude shouldn't be getting whatever fucking bonuses he's getting. Sorry, I'm swearing, but like whatever. They really probably need to start up there, because that doesn't just happen. It doesn't. That's something that you allow to happen.
There's a lot of smoke here. There's a lot of smoke here with this. I mean, there really is. That saying where there's smoke, there's fire. And you have people coming out now on Twitter, and it's just, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see more people coming out, maybe former employees there that start coming out and talking about this a little bit more.
Here's the thing, and we're going to see this more as the years go on. Places like Ubisoft, Blizzard, everything else. These are companies like, I'm talking, a lot of these people that generally come out of these accusations are in my age range. They're in their like late 20s, early 30s. You grow up playing these games. You put these studios on this pedestal of, man, if I could get a job there. Like, I remember being a kid and wanting to get into game design and like dreaming of working for Blizzard because I love Diablo, and there'd be nothing cooler than to work on that game. And it's so unfortunate that there's so many, for every person you drive out of the industry like this, there's 10 starry-eyed 20-year-olds fresh out of school who are willing to fill that role because they need that notch on their resume to get somewhere. And that is what the industry needs to fix, is that the people that are being driven out of this industry are so incredibly talented, but you're seeing people exit this industry at like 33, 34 years of age because of stuff like this. Like, when you're talking like you're so driven down that you're physically sick, your hair is falling out, you're killing yourself. Like, what are we putting people through for consumer electronics?
Mm-hmm.
It's a great point, Nick. I mean, Jason Schreier actually has another article another story he's going to be about Blizzard this coming week. Believe it or not, this has not. It doesn't have it's not about discrimination or misconduct, but he says it's related to a common theme that staff felt like they'd be punished if they spoke up about problems at Activision-Blizzard. So yeah, this thing. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just this is bad. This is bad. And I'm frankly Obi, I know you mentioned you have a daughter. I have one too. I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted by this.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean,
every time you hear that shit, you think about that stuff, right? When you have kids, you start to think about that stuff.
If someone treated my daughter like that, I'd like making rape jokes there. Oh my God. Like, if I heard that, there'd be a problem. There would be a problem. Like,
furniture moving around.
What's that, E?
No, so there'd be some furniture moving around that office.
I know, right? There'd be a situation, right? Furniture moving around. Yeah. No, I mean, seriously, like, I'm disgusted to hear this. This shit's got to change. It's got to change. It's fucked up because we're hearing it. It's not just like, Activision Blizzard. We're hearing this we heard these allegations about, Rockstar, and we've heard this about Ubisoft, and we heard this about Quantic Dream, but I almost feel like we hear these allegations, these things come out where people are saying, hey, look, this is what's going on. It's bad. And I feel like nothing changes. It's a problem.
Well, it's like Nick said. I mean, as humans, most times we value entertainment over all. And we see it in Hollywood, we see it in sports, that we sometimes will turn a blind eye unless something's that egregious, or it's a person that you don't like or a thing you don't like. Then you kind of, you're willing to kind of put the light on it. But yeah, like Nick said, a lot of times, people they go, oh, that's messed up, but then they kind of, go back to playing their game or going back to do whatever, and these companies are aware of that too. I mean, you look at the statement Ubisoft put out, we had a third party come in, and the people who were involved in these things were either reprimanded or, given sensitivity training. That's not an answer.
That's not an answer at all.
No, it's not.
And that's what goes back to, I'm going to bring it back to my example of transparency. Somebody said something, and you can say, oh, they're being transparent. Well, they're saying something. Doesn't necessarily mean it's transparent, but they're saying something. So yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, and I guess how bad does it have to get until like you said, like before like real actions taken? Like I agree with you, sensitivity training. What the like I know what that is, but like really, come on.
But again, it's a statement that can be said, but who has an idea of how to validate any of that?
Exactly.
And it's not enough. It doesn't even sound like enough, enough
to
answer everything that was alleged against them. But B, who can even validate that? That's just the way of saying, hey, you guys like our games. We did this. You're okay with us now, right? You're good. We can continue on, making all this money with our formulaic games, right? There you go. And and again, that is how like all of the whole machine kind of works, because people are mad at something for the day and then they move on to the next thing. You watch it every day or every week with Kotaku, and Kotaku puts out a headline, people get pissed, they sit in their little corner sharing it, talking about it. Nothing changes. Kotaku puts another one out and the whole process starts again the next week. It kind of goes into it's like the same vein. It's like, if you're going to sit in a circle, where does the change come from? But until you really start to dig into it, you really start to like try to hold these like companies accountable and say, no, people, this is not cool. We're not going to put up with this. What's going to change? They're going to continue to kind of like sweep things under the rug, and that's not just like exclusive to Activision. This is all companies all around the world.
Yeah, especially companies that have been heavily male populated for many years. And I think that's just something for everybody to kind of take away, is that if you are in one of those situations in an industry that is majority male, for whatever reason over the years, there is a good old boy network, and it used to be okay for them just to kind of talk like that, because I'm not saying it was okay, but they think it's okay because that's how they've always talked and how they've always acted. And you go up, and so that kind of, it's interesting to see this still happening, even in light of, a lot of the pushes that we've seen over the last few years, that things like this still are going on, that people can still be that not self-aware. And really, until there's prices that are paid somehow, somewhere. And it's like, and again, I understand there's a process. So I'm not like, and I understand that aspect. I will say though, that when there is this many, there's this many sort of accusations or, basically recordings of these different events coming from different people, some of them who aren't even connected. I think that, to me, that's more than just smoke. That's a trend. There's something that's definitely wrong. And I think that you have to start seeing enough of a penalty where people are a little bit more not a little bit, but a lot more self-aware, proactive. And again, it starts with leadership. So to me, it's just, they have a leadership problem. I think it goes beyond just the games. They had a culture problem there, and it's probably affecting that stuff too. But I think this is obviously more important.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, OBM. B, do you have any thoughts on this before we wrap up?
Tick, 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 tick.
B, that sounds like you think this thing's gonna get messier, man. Like we're gonna learn more.
This is just the beginning. This is the first peel off the onion.
Yeah,
I mean, I think this is about to get real crazy for Activision and Blizzard.
Oh man,
sad too,
B.
because Blizzard should not be wrapped up into this nonsense, man. Blizzard used to be this great company that put out great games, and ever since Activision kind of over there and put their arm around them, it's been all downhill for them.
Wow. Yeah. You know, B, I said this earlier on the show. You're the Nostradamus of the show, man. I believe that when you say this, I believe you that this will happen. I have a feeling we'll be back here like maybe next week, and you'll be like, "Remember what I said last week?" And I'll be like, "Yep."
You don't need insiders when you have Nostradamus.
Exactly. This is true. Let me grab a couple super chats here real quick. We have Godzilla with the $2 super chat. Says, bruh. He says, "Bruh, I can't believe what BRAP just read. Wow." I know that's what I said when I first read it too. And then we have Sianu.com with the $3 super chat. Says, "I quit gaming if Nintendo, Xbox, and PlayStation has same issue." Thank you for that super chat, gentlemen. But yeah, I think you're right, B. I think this thing might get messier as we learn more. Again, I just wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more people like this one individual on Twitter who used to work there talk about what's happened and why they're not there anymore, and just it's not good at all. And I keep thinking about what I said earlier. You know, I have a daughter, and like you said, Eric, man, if someone treated my daughter like that, you're right. Their furniture would be moving quickly. You know, there'd be a problem. So
yeah, and that's the thing is, like, you have to have that kind of mentality for anybody that's through it. You know, because that is somebody's daughter.
That's a great point, man. Yeah, absolutely.
And hell, that's somebody's son too. Because it's definitely, just seeing where they're talking about the women of it. But these things kind of happen to like men, and examples too. Maybe not always the sexual harassment part of it, but the discrimination parts of it. Whether it's like ethnicity or what the case may be. Like, there's a lot of egregious shit that happens in these companies. So. But again, we're on this level of it. It's about the gaming thing. But again, you watch the tone of how it kind of goes in the social media space. It seems like, people will hear this story, you get upset, but it seems like these kind of things gain more traction. I hate to say this, depending on what platforms they fall on. Like if this was a story that came out of Microsoft or came out of Sony, the whole conversation right now would be different on social. You know what I'm saying? It kind of always comes back down to some weird console war stuff. So it's like, but these are the things when you're getting these kinds of signals and you're getting these kinds of stories, these are the things that matter most. It doesn't, people are more focused on, when the next show is coming up or whatever, but this is dealing with people's like mental well-being and their lives and their livelihood.
Yeah. No, that's a good
stuff
point.
that you should be retweeting, and talking about and really getting pissed about. And adding Activision and making noise.
Yeah, there's not going to be enough people who stop and think and say, you know what? I'm not playing Warzone. I'm not playing Call of Duty, or I'm not buying the next one. I'm not supporting anything that they do.
Right.
It'll be a story for a week for some people, for a day, and then they'll get back on Warzone and talk shit with their friends and continue to buy. Whatever microtransactions are on there, and just go about their day like. This is just another news story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great point, B. And to your point, Eric, these are the things that should really kind of rally people, right? Or things that people should get upset about. Instead of things that are
trivial.
That are trivial, that don't have any real impact on anyone else's life in a negative way, or their own life in a negative way. So that's a great point, man. Well, gentlemen, it's we're a little bit past 11 o'clock. I want to go ahead and wrap up the show. First of all, big shout out to everyone in the live chat. Thank you all for coming by, hanging out with us this evening. Appreciate the super chats. Please hit that like button. And if you're new to the show, subscribe if you enjoyed tonight's content. Also want to give a shout out to Nicholas Downey, who had to leave us because I know he's got to work early. So, Nick, thank you again for joining us on BRAP tonight. Please check out Nick and Eric and the Gaming Perspective podcast. I always forget the time, Eric. It's 8 or 9, I think. It's 8, right?
Tuesday at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
No,
Thank you.
Tuesdays at 8.
Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Definitely check them out. Gaming Perspective podcast. It's a great show. And Nick also writes for Lords of Gaming as well. And OBM, always a pleasure having you on, man. appreciate your insight as always. And Qdoba's better than Chipotle, but let everyone know they can find
Oh
you.
my God. Yeah, that's why I'm here. I'm here to defend. I'm here to defend the honor of my product. So, Chipotle fanboys.
The burrito wars. You think the console wars are bad? Wait till you get the burrito wars.
It's like, I don't know how you could choose Qdoba and their fake shit over Chipotle. But anyways,
those Taco Bell stands are the worst, man.
Oh man, Taco Bell's not even food. But yeah, that's like yeah. Anyways, but I do appreciate you having me on. Obviously, letting me talk a little bit, about some of the topics today. It's always a great time being on with you guys. I feel like everybody here is pretty even keeled and diverse in terms of like the perspectives, and it's always great to come in and converse with you. I think a lot of times it just feels like conversing, when it's not on the podcast. I know you mentioned before, it's like we might as well turn this into a podcast. So, it was great catching up, reminiscing about our console war days again, to kind of remember our old list wars. So that was always fun. If anybody wants to find me, I'm on Twitter. You can find me at mother_1. Or just go to Xbox Era if you are a gamer that plays Xbox or PC, because PC is Xbox. Come over there. We got forums. We do have a really talented staff that puts out a lot of content. Hopefully I'll have something actually about speaking of, and I didn't plan on talking about the indie developer before coming on today, but about indie developers by Monday. So hopefully I'll get a piece out regarding that. So keep a lookout for that. But thanks as always. I appreciate the time, guys.
Absolutely, man. Always a pleasure having you on OBM. And we got my man, Eric Jackson. Man, always a pleasure having you on, man. Let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, another great show. Chat, you guys were awesome tonight. Thank you very much for coming through. OBM, thank you for coming through. My boy Nick. And as always, B Money, Enrique, shout out to you guys. But yeah, good show. You can find me on Twitter, EC Jackson with an X. And when I'm out there, I'm just hanging out and about with Nick and Sam on the gaming perspective, Tuesday nights at 8:00.
Absolutely, man. And last but not least, we got my man B Money 101. B, man, always a pleasure. I love your predictions because they usually come right. But let me look and find you, man.
Yeah, we had a great show. Appreciate Nick and OBM for coming through this week. You can find me everywhere. Same name, B Money 101. I've been a little split gate. So if you're playing that, definitely hit me up. And I'll be on Death's Door probably the rest of the week. So you guys next week.
Awesome. Yeah, it was definitely a great show. And again, big shout out to Nick and OBM. Also want to give a big shout out to Slomo Backslap and Gaming Forte. They couldn't make it this evening, but big shout out to the homies. I guess they're not doing DPS tomorrow since Slimo's on vacation. But anyhow, you check DPS podcast. Usually they go live every Thursday night. It's 9 p.m. Eastern time. So on that note, we're out. Everyone, have a great rest of the week, by the way. Enjoy some time playing video games. Thank you all for the support. Really appreciate it. And may do a BRAP rant again this week, or this weekend, I should say. So keep an eye out for that on the Twitters. Give us a follow on Twitter, BRAP_podcast. On that note, we are out. Everyone, again, have a great rest of the week. Enjoy some video games. We're out.